The story of the movie takes place in 2005. At the beginning of the movie, the storyteller says that human development is at a crossroads. Most science fiction stories about the future say that people will be smarter and more advanced in the future. But since humans are already at the top of the food chain, their development is going in the wrong direction. Over time, people become less smart. In this situation, Corporal Joe Bowers, a librarian in the US Army, is asked by his superiors to take part in an important experiment. Joe is upset because he had planned to be a librarian until he retired, but he has to do what he is told. Then, we are taken to a secret meeting between some top military leaders. General Collins tells the other soldiers what he thinks. He says that experts have made a human sleep pod that can keep people alive for as long as they want. So that people can keep their best men in their prime and bring them back to life when they need to. Joe was picked to be the first test subject because he is the most normal soldier and doesn't have any close relatives. In the same way, they needed a woman for the trial, but there wasn't a good match in the service. So, Collins picks a prostitute whose name is Rita. He shows the cops pictures of him and Upgrade, Rita's boss, partying together, which makes everyone in the room feel awkward. He ends the talk by saying that the subjects will be put into the pods tomorrow and that the experiment will last for a year. Since the project is highly secret, the officials in the room are not allowed to tell anyone else about it. The next day, Joe and Rita are in an area where people wait. Joe says his name and then asks Rita where she is from. Rita says she is a painter because she doesn't want to let on that she is a prostitute. Then, they are both given an 4 and put into 2 human sleep pods. Rita freaks out and tries to get up, but Joe reassures her that the experts know what they are doing. He tells her that they will only be inside for a year, so she shouldn't worry. The two are finally locked inside the pods. Along with him, Upgrade is also taken into custody for running a prostitution ring. So, there is no one left to take care of the slumber pods. The military base is closed because of a scandal, and the building where the pods are is torn down. As the years go by, Joe and Rita sleep in the pod. Even though things look bad for the two, they are worse for humanity as a whole. People are getting more and more stupid at a scary rate. The average ability figure goes down as time goes on. Some people have high hopes that genetic engineering and science will be able to fix this problem, but the best scientists in the world are doing stupid things like trying to stop hair loss and make erections last longer. In the meantime, the number of people keeps growing and getting dumber until the year 2505. People still can't fix simple problems like how to get rid of garbage after all these years. So the trash has been piled up for a very long time with no plan at all. This causes the big garbage dump of 2505. And one day, Joe's sleep pod ends up in a strange house because of a huge garbage slide. Joe stumbles out of the pod feeling dizzy and lost. Frito Pendejo is the name of the person in the house. Frito doesn't care that there is trash and a stranger in his house. Instead, he keeps watching weird shows on TV. He only stands up to tell Joe to be quiet. We can see that his couch has a toilet built into it so he wouldn't have to get up all the time. Then, he throws Joe out the window. Joe doesn't understand what's going on in the outside world, and he thinks to himself that so much has changed in just a year. But he has no idea that he is in the year 2505. He sees a group of people on the side of the road who are talking and grunting in a strange way. Joe can understand them, but when he talks normally, they call him names and try to get him to leave. Joe is confused and feels sick, so he chooses to go to a hospital nearby. He goes to the front desk and tells the woman he is in the army. The woman doesn't know what's going on, so she just presses one of her desk's many buttons. A voice tells Joe to go to the right to the testing area. He goes to a water pump to get some water, but instead of water, it gives him a drink called the Brawndo. When Joe asks a bystander where he can get something to drink, the man laughs at him because Joe wants to drink water. It turns out that everyone in the world uses Brawndo to drink, take a bath, and do other everyday things, while water is only used in bathrooms. Then he has to put plugs in his mouth, ear, and anus in the testing area. The doctor mixes up the plugs that he has already put in the right places. Joe finishes the process, which makes him feel sick and is then sent to a doctor. While he's waiting, he looks at a magazine and sees the number 2505 written on it. He thinks it must be a mistake. When the doctor comes, all of Joe's questions about his health are answered with the phrase, "kick ass." He also says that Joe is stupid and wants him to pay a fee of $5 billion. Just then, Joe sees that the bill says 2505. He finally figures out that he has been living in the pod for 500 years. Joe almost doesn't believe it, so he goes to the window to look at the city and is shocked by what he sees. Some buildings are being held up by ropes as they fall into each other. Also, trash is everywhere in the city. In the meantime, the doctor is freaking out because Joe doesn't have a tattoo of the word citizen on his wrist. Joe gets scared and runs away from the hospital while the doctor calls the cops on him for not paying his hospital bills. A voice says that when Joe woke up, the world was in trouble. The economy is in bad shape, a big dust bowl has destroyed all food sources, and as is the most popular movie in the country. He goes to see an Oscar-winning movie, only to spend 90 minutes staring at someone's backside. At night, he is taken to court for not being able to be scanned. There, he is given a lawyer who is Frito Pendejo, the first person Joe met in 2505. Everyone in the court laughs as Frito makes fun of him. Joe makes a good case and explains why he can't be arrested, but the lawyers and judge just laugh at him. At last, the judge finds him guilty and tells him to go to jail. Rita also gets out of the pod and tries to get in touch with her boss and boyfriend. She can't reach him because the phone wants her to pay $2,000 to do so. Just then, a guy walks up to her. She tricks him and gets his money. At the same time, Joe is taken to a place where people get the identification tattoo that makes them scannable. Joe starts to say that he doesn't know what's going on when the machine asks him his name. Because of this, the machine reads his name as "not sure" and prints that on his wrist. People start calling him "not sure" as well. Then, he is given an IQ and amplitude test, where he is asked to do simple math problems. Joe gets all of them right, and he is surprised that other people can't figure out what the shapes are. He is taken to jail after that. He finally starts to understand that everyone in the world today is dumb. So, he tells the guard that he should be released today. The stupid guard lets him go, but the alarms pick up that an inmate has gotten away, so the cops go after him as he runs through the streets. Joe gets away from them and goes back to where Frito lives. He thinks that someone made a time machine in the last 500 years and wants Frito to help him find one. Frito doesn't want to help Joe, but Joe tricks him by saying that he will give him $8 billion for his help. Frito eventually tells them where the time machine is. Just then, the cops came to look for Joe. They knocked on the door. Two people escape through a window and drive to a museum. On the way, they run into Rita, who is still taking advantage of the same guy. Rita gets in the car, and she is still not aware that Upgrade is already dead, so she is afraid that he will come after the money she owes him. Something outside the car reads Joe's wrist as they drive, and the cops are told where he is. The car's battery dies, so they have to get out. After that, the cops come up to the car and shoot at it. Soon, a lot of people come together and start fighting. Joe, Frito, and Rita run away in order to get to the time machine. Then, Joe takes them to Costco, which is now the place where everyone does business. He says he even learned about the rules at Costco. Rita goes to the bathroom while they wait for the subway. Before she comes back, Joe's wrist is read by mistake, and the whole place knows that a criminal is there. Frito gets on the metro when it comes, but Joe waits for Rita and gets caught by the cops. But this time, instead of going to jail, he is taken to the White House. There, Joe meets the president, Camacho, and some of his staff. Camacho makes fun of him by saying that he thought Joe's brain would make his head bigger. Everyone was surprised when Joe took an IQ test in jail and had the best score anyone had ever seen. Because Joe is smart, the president gives him the job of Secretary of the Interior. They also tell Joe, to his surprise, that he is the smartest man in the world. Then, everyone goes to the House of Representatives, where the president says that their new Secretary of the Interior, Mr. Shaw, will solve the problems of lack of food and dust storms. He also says that he will let Joe out of jail if he fixes the problem. Then, at the next cabinet meeting, the secretaries ask Joe to say something smart. Joe says some odd, hard-to-understand words that make them think he is smart. Then Joe tells Frito to draw a map of where the time machine is until he can get the ladies to do something else. Later, he takes them to a field where they should be growing food. He also tells them to get Rita because she might be able to help them with the crops. Everyone is now on the field, where Frito gives Joe the map in secret. Rita gets there at the same time. Joe pulls her aside and tells her he wants to use the map to get away. But when he sees that Frito's map is just a line, his plan falls apart. Then Joe finds out that people have been soaking the plants with Brawndo, which is an energy drink. He calls a government meeting to decide to stop using Brawndo and start using water instead. The secretaries don't like his idea at all. So, instead of trying to convince them, he just says that he can talk to the plants and that they want water. Joe doesn't know that the energy drink caused the salt to build up on the top layer of the earth, killing plants and causing dust storms. So, he is really helping them solve their problems. Everything goes as planned for a few days. But soon, there won't be any more Brawndo energy drinks because production is going down. This means that half of the people are out of work. People fight in front of the White House. The news says that Joe goes to court and is found guilty of making people lose their jobs. He has to spend one night in a rehab center. In the new world, a criminal is rehabilitated when a big truck chases them around an arena while a crowd cheers for the truck. Most of the time, the wrongdoer dies before getting better. Joe is taken to the arena, and Rita goes back to the White House in a sad mood, ready to go with Frito to the time machine. The rehab is shown on TV stations all over the country. Joe drives around in a small car while being chased by a huge killer turkey. Right at that moment, Rita sees a rose plant growing outside. She realizes that Joe's plan to water the plants worked, so she asks Frito to take her to the arena. She plans to show the crops on TV so that Joe won't have to pay for what he did. While this is going on, Joe is still trying to get away from the death truck. Rita gets there on time and pays a cameraman to go with Frito and take pictures of the veggies growing. Then, she goes to the room where the monitors are and takes over the control panel. Frito gets to the field and takes pictures of the crops. The video clip is shown on a big screen. When President Camacho sees this, he stops Joe from being killed and reduces his sentence. This makes the crowd cheer. Now, everyone is at a party at the White House for college students. Rita says that she doesn't want to go home because the future is more fun. Joe is shocked, but he doesn't make her come with him against her will. Before Joe goes, the president calls him on stage and announces that he is the new vice president. Everyone hopes that Joe will stay in 2505, so they all look at him with hopeful eyes. Then someone says that the time machine is a dumb ride. Frito takes Joe to the machine, and when they get there, it turns out that the machine is actually a kid's ride. A few months later, Joe is chosen president of the United States, and Rita is married to him and becomes the first lady. People thought that humans could become smart again as a new era began when he was in charge. Even better, he has 3 kids with Rita who are said to be the best kids in the world. Share your thoughts in the comments, give us a like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next videos.